thank yous. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. The agenda tonight is going to look like this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background to build context in terms of entrepreneurship, and also a quick review for those of you who do not know what the business model canvas is, as well as key partnerships, just the very basics. Also, we're going to have a 15-minute break. We're going to talk about partnership agreements, just the very framework of what a partnership agreement is and what should be included in a partnership agreement. And also we're going to look at 3 case studies from 3 different vantage points. We're going to look at 500px, which is a darling right out of the DMZ zone here, a very successful startup. We're going to look at Patois Toronto, which is a really successful startup restaurant that is poised to now launch its 2nd location in Dubai. So we're going to look at that, what happens when you start scaling up. And then we're going to look at a straight out of Compton and take a very interesting look at not only the protagonists of this story, but we're going to actually look at the business that's involved in bringing Straight Out of Compton, the movie, to bear. And then I'm going to leave you with the 7 key takeaways. So if you hang in with me, you'll get it tonight. All right, so as Cleo said, this is the 7 relationship management imperatives. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my consulting business. One of the things I do is I'm a business development consultant, and I help with planning and strategy. And it's not your old archaic business plan. It is sifting your startup or business through the lens of the business model canvas. Also, I help companies discover additional streams of income, as well as business coaching. And I show companies where they're bleeding and where they're missing out on opportunity. And also, I do speaking gigs like this and conduct workshops and facilitation. All right, so as Cleo said, I cut my teeth in financial services for about 14 years and started basically at ground zero at the reception desk and worked my way through 14 years through the company in very critical operational areas and ended up in senior management in marketing. And then I did a stint in international development, and I'll show you later via pictures some of the really interesting programs that I was involved with. And all of these things involved relationship. And my most recent job was with working with the provincial government as a director of partner services. So the basis for that job was making sure that I managed the relationships between the provincial government and the federal government and municipal government, making sure that we worked on collaboratives together and also came up with interesting initiatives. All right, so if a picture tells 1,000 words, then these pictures will speak. One of the first interesting projects that I had to work on, 7 days into a brand new job, working with an international NGO, sent over to Ethiopia to work with the Clinton Foundation. So Bill Clinton came on board with the NGO that I was working with, and we were going to build an HIV/AIDS pediatric hospital. And also the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York was partnering in on this initiative and collaborative so that all 3 parties would work together to bring this to bear. And this is Bill Clinton, and I did meet him. And one of the interesting things is, you know, sometimes you have this out-of-body experience. So as I'm walking to my seat, I hear the southern drawl saying, excuse me, are you Miss Roberts? And, you know, I felt like Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver. I was like, are you talking to me? But, you know, it was such a dynamic experience, bringing, you know, different parties from different countries, different cultures together, and seeing how that elixir of relationship actually works. And that definitely was one of the highlights of my career up until this point. And also part of that work internationally was going around to different stakeholders as well as doing rural assessments and going into micro-enterprise programs, which are essentially startups, and doing assessments of the actual businesses to see if those businesses are viable. On the bottom left are some of the international partners that I worked with, a country director from Sri Lanka and also the country director from Ethiopia. And in terms of speaking, I had a great opportunity to speak at City Hall for the Global Change Initiative, which was a conference on the environment and corporate social responsibility. Now, these are just a look at some of the startups that, interesting projects that I had an opportunity to go and take a look at. The top left one is actually a shea butter making factory. This is in Burkina Faso. And this particular startup or micro enterprise business had been replicated over a couple of times over and then supplying to places like the Body Shop. And also on the left, this is a soap making factory in Ghana, or actually it's Senegal. And again, this is a business that has replicated itself and scaled up to other communities as well. On the bottom right is a leather making factory, and again, these women were trained in business skills to import, export leather goods. And on the top right is a composting project in Ghana. And then in Ethiopia, again, you have a project where these young women are making school uniforms. Okay. Also, I had a great opportunity to work on several boards, including the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And what was really interesting about that is dealing with people who are applying for grants, dealing with companies who are applying for grants. And we pumped about $20 million back into community. And the mainstay of that particular role was figuring out whether or not these companies were going to be sustainable. And also working with the city and the Symphonia Toronto, which is a chamber orchestra. So mentoring is a major part of my business model. So in terms of my consulting, I always reserve a component of it to mentor young business leaders, people who are in startups. I have 5 mentees from right here from Ryerson. Joshua DeWong is one of them, Karen Singh and a few others, and Haris Ahmad from another university. But definitely I believe in giving back to community in terms of sharing knowledge and helping where I can. Okay, so I want to tell you a story, very interesting story about where I met that changed the whole shape of how I see entrepreneurship. You know, usually you think about a developed country and you think, you know, you have all the tools. I met a very interesting woman in Ghana. And while doing work there, we had a dinner for people living with AIDS. And this particular woman hung back at the end of the dinner, and all my other colleagues had made their way to the hotel. And this particular woman said, Carol, you know, could you just stay with me? Because this is the most beautiful night. This is the perfect day in my life. And just her statement, making that statement, had me really kind of puzzled. Like, how could this be the perfect day in your life? And then she proceeded to tell me her story, which was a really interesting story. She told me that she was infected with AIDS. She got infected by her husband. Her husband had, when she confronted her husband about, you know, being infected, he had beat her mercilessly, unfortunately defecated her and left her for dead in the street. A local community worker found her and cleaned her up and was able to get her some antiretroviral drugs and put her on treatment. They didn't want to return her to the husband, so they sought to put her in a home with the next of kin. And the treatment wasn't really actually any better. The family made her sleep on the floor by the front door and used to sweep the dirt into the corner where she actually used to sleep. So there again, she was removed from that home, and the community workers local partners that we worked with, were able to find her an independent home, you know, give her a small micro loan so she could start a business. She had a shop with shoelaces and phone cards and whatnot. Interestingly enough, this woman, Judy, replicated her business over 5 communities. And so coming back to Toronto, I started to think about entrepreneurship in a very, very different way. And you can find unlikely heroes in different places. I just wanted to read just an excerpt from a book by Stephen Blank. And it's called A Hero of a Thousand Faces. He has a book that he wrote, and it's called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. If you have a startup, There's going to be some materials that I share with you, and this is one of the books that I highly recommend if you're a startup, get. In fact, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, how many people watch the show How to Get Away with Murder? Have ever seen that show? Viola Davis says that this is the most seminal, influential book that she has ever read in her life. And the same goes for Stephen Blank, who is, he is a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. He's also a mentor to Dr. Sean Wise here out of the startup zone. So this is how he describes the hero's journey. And I would aptly substitute the entrepreneur's journey. The hero's journey is an apt way to think of startups. All new companies and new products begin with an almost mythological vision, a hope of what could be with a goal that few others can see. It's this bright and burning vision that differentiates the entrepreneur from big company CEOs and startups from existing businesses. Founding entrepreneurs are out to prove that their vision and business are real and not some hallucination. To succeed, they must abandon the status quo and strike out on what appears to be a new path, often shrouded in uncertainty. Obstacles, hardships, disaster lie ahead, and their journey to success tests more than financial resources. It tests their stamina, agility, and the limits of courage. And I think that pretty much summarizes what I think about entrepreneurship. So how many people here are actually full-time students at Ryerson? I just want to get a poll. So there's quite a few of you. How many of you are actually in a business and you are a small startup or small business? Okay, great. And how many people here are actually just, you're toying with the idea of entrepreneurship and you kind of want to get a sense of what's involved? Oh, okay, cool, all right. So anyway, that's fantastic. So these are some of the characteristics that I've just sort of isolated that I find that are very common to people who have the entrepreneurial mindset. They're creators and visionaries. They're adventurers. They're very curious. They ask a lot of questions. They are intrepid, brave, and courageous. Risk takers, out-of-the-box thinkers, nonconformists, and a little bit of crazy or cray-cray. And ultimately, they're heroes because they envision something and they build something out of nothing. They create industry and create jobs. So just so that we can change the energy in the room, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all a little crazy, I'm going to ask you to indulge me on a little craziness. So first of all, I should say I'll share something a little personal about you. I like films and I like violent films. I like the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, The Godfather, any mafia story, Kill Bill 1 and 2, especially the scene with Vivica Fox and Uma Thurman where she's in the kitchen and the knife and the whole nine. Oh, somebody knows that scene, yeah, favorite scene. But one of my favorite movies, and I know what you're going to be thinking, it's 300. I know it's 90 minutes of men prancing around in their underwear with muscles, but that's not the reason why I like this movie. I like this movie because the 300 have a very determined, tenacious attitude, and even though they're small in numbers, they have this don't quit, victorious attitude about them. And it's that spirit that is necessary for the entrepreneur. So this is startup school, and I know in this movie they say, this is Sparta. But I'm gonna ask you to all stand up right now. And instead of saying this is Sparta, I want you to pump your fist after I say after I say 1, 2, 3, on the count of 3, I want you to pump your fist in the air and say, this is startup. All right? Instead of Sparta. So that we can have a different environment in here tonight. All right? 1, 2, 3. This is Sparta! All right. I did. Startup. All right. So now the energy is primed for all the information I have to share with you tonight. Hopefully it's going to be great content. And hopefully your mindset in terms of how you see startup is going to be really exciting. Okay, so my mom always told me that sharing is caring. So I'm going to share a couple of resources that I think are fantastic reading material for anyone who's thinking about startup business. Again, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Stephen Blank. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a great book. The book is as lean as the philosophy. And also Startup Opportunities by your own Dr. Sean Wise and Brad Feld. Now, if you have a chance, an opportunity, go onto YouTube and take a look at his interview on The Naked Entrepreneur with Brad Feld, because they talk about what it takes and the types of challenges that entrepreneurs go through. And I found it to be a very enlightening interview, so check it out. It's on The Naked Entrepreneur, Brad Feld interview. Some other materials that I found really amazing, and I saw one just out front there, is the business model generation. And this is where the business model canvas came from. Came from Alexander Osterwalder, and also Running Lean. And this is more about iteration in terms of developing your business and creating new models. And also the Startup Owner's Manual. Another great resource that I actually use, because entrepreneurship is a mental game. So what you see manifested on the outside actually starts in here. And this particular, it's a 62-page free guide, and you will get the slide deck for this presentation. But that link will take you right to a downloadable PDF file, and it is an absolutely amazing guide to make sure that your mental game is straight and tough. Now, this is a favorite quote of mine by one of my favorite marketing gurus, thought leaders, Seth Godin. He says that if you have a startup, that you are to fail fast and cheap, fail often, fail in a way that doesn't kill you, and also, I would ask, fail in a way that doesn't kill your business. So I'm just going to take a little bit of a review for those who don't know what a business model canvas is. Does anybody here not know what a business model canvas? Okay, so we had a couple people. Okay, so I'm glad that I'm doing a little recap on this. Okay, so just as an artist needs a canvas to express visually their masterpiece or a creative expression, the entrepreneur actually needs a canvas to express their own business creativity. And so this is what the business model canvas looks like, and there are 9 key segments to this business, and just shortly we're going to watch a video about this. But tonight I'm going to focus in on the first segment, the key partner segment, and I'm going to talk about the softer skills. So I'm not going to be talking about CRM or client relationship management software. I'm going to be talking about the softer skills and what it takes to cultivate and manage and optimize a relationship with a key partner. So in the canvas, you have key partners, you have key activities, the key activities that your business needs to function on a day-to-day basis, your value proposition, that is, what do you have to offer? What is your point of differentiation? The customer relationships, and also your customers, your end users, the revenue sources that you use for your company, as well as your distribution channels, and your key resources. What must you have in place in order to run your business? And also your revenue costs. What is it going to cost you to run your business? So right now, we're going to watch a little 2-minute video, but first I'm going to say why this business model canvas is important. It's important because it really honestly has replaced the old conventional business plan. Before, you would put together your business plan, you'd have your SWOT analysis, and you'd have all your numbers and graphs and charts, and as soon as you put it on the shelf and bound it, it's dead. So I'm not saying not to write a business plan, but what I'm saying is if you use the business model canvas to start with your business idea and look at the 9 segments, then write your business plan, you're going to find it's a lot easier. It actually visually frames your work and your project. So basically, the business model canvas gives you your business in one snapshot. And if you are pitching or you're going to a bank or a venture capitalist, it's easy to pitch what you've got right in front of you in one page in a very simplified manner than it is to give them a 52-page report that really quite likely they won't want to read. So it's a living, workable document. As well, it is a live document. The value proposition is central to the canvas, so what you're offering has to be something that is unique, and it has to be something that sets you apart from your competition. And this business model canvas helps you iterate or come up with new, different models for your business. So this is the business model canvas.
An organization's business model can be described with 9 basic building blocks: your customer segments, your value proposition for each segment, the channels to reach customers, customer relationships you establish, the revenue streams you generate, the key resources and key activities you require to create value, the key partners, and the cost structure of the business model. But it's not sufficient to just enumerate the 9 building blocks. What you really want to do is to map them out on a pre-structured canvas. This is what we call the business model canvas, a tool that helps you map, discuss, design, and invent new business models. Let's briefly go through the 9 building blocks, starting with the customer segments. These are all the people or organizations for which you're creating value. This includes simple users and paying customers. For each segment, you have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. The channels describe through which touchpoints you're interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the type of relationship you're establishing with your customers. The revenue streams make clear how and through which pricing mechanisms your business model is capturing value. Then you need to describe the infrastructure to create, deliver, and capture value. The key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model. The key activities show which things you really need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Then once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. So with the business model canvas, you can map out your entire business model in one image. This works for startup entrepreneurs just as well as for the most senior executives.
So a lot of companies like Lego, Google, Facebook will look at their business model, use the business model to look at their business and also come up with new businesses. And this is just a snapshot of what Twitter's business model canvas looks like. So as you can see, their customer segments are the users, business enterprises, developers. The relationships are very similar to the end user ones. The distribution channels are websites, desktop apps, mobile apps, Twitter. The revenue streams include licensing data streams, promoted accounts, promoted tweets, promoted trends, analytics. Value proposition is news events, targeted marketing, key activities or platform development, as well as key resources are a twitter.com platform. Where companies like Facebook and Twitter spend their most money is in terms of servers. Because you think about how much memory it takes to keep all your pictures on Facebook or to keep all your tweets and all your pictures in terms of keeping them online. That's a lot of memory that's kept up, and they've got to have a lot of servers. So this is where they spend the bulk of their money if they're looking at their cost structures and also hiring employees, because staff, of course. And key partners, search vendors, device vendors, media companies, mobile operators. So I just wanted you to see how this actually looks to give you an idea how you might formulate your own business model canvas. And does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, so we'll go on. All right, you have a question?
Is there a good way to start within the campus? Or do you just, whatever comes?
You know,
is there a good starting point in the campus? Or?
That's a good question. And I would say the question was, is there a good starting point in terms of the business model canvas? And I would say when you have a seedling of an idea about your business and what you're thinking about, brainstorming is probably the best thing that you can do. Because you're going to have your canvas and you're going to have stickies, and this is going to be a visual tool, so you're going to put it on the wall and you're going to have stickies, and you're going to look at it, and if it looks like it will fly, then you're going to go with it, and then you're going to do beta testing, you're going to test it. If it doesn't fly, then you're going to pivot, you're going to recalibrate, and you're going to try something different. So the best thing to do is come up with as many ideas as you can, see how it looks visually, test it, and then go back and see what actually sticks. So I just want to make sure that we all understand the definition of partnership, because there are several. A business partnership is when two or more commercial entities form an alliance. And here are 5 key questions that you really need to ask yourself when you're thinking about partnerships for your business. So number 1, what key partners are actually critical to your business? Who do you need to be in bed with? Who do you need to be friends with? Who do you need to be in love with? What type of partnership best suits your needs? Also, who are your critical suppliers? Who must you have in order to do your day-to-day operations? And also, which suppliers and partners are sourcing your key resources? So you need to know that as well. And also, what is the best cluster or supply chain where you should be located? Now, there's 4 kinds of motivations behind partnerships. And number 1, basically, the necessity to carry out your business or your value proposition. To take advantage of and optimize the economy of scale, because when you're buying things en masse, of course, there's a price reduction, as well as to mitigate risk and uncertainty. So if you get involved with a partner that has the market on a particular, or, basically is an expert in a niche market, then it gives you an opportunity to enter a new market, and it also mitigates your risk because you don't have to be playing around with it because they're expert in that particular market. Also, it allows you to have the acquisition of particular resources as well as activities. And there's 4 types of partnerships that we're going to look at. So we're going to take a look at strategic alliances. And a strategic alliance are partnerships where 2 or more companies work together to achieve objectives that would be mutually beneficial. And I'm going to give you examples of each of these types of partnerships. They are usually between non-competitors. So an excellent example of strategic alliance is Oprah's partnership with Starbucks. Starbucks thought Oprah's got a very good demographic that they haven't tapped into. The tea industry, by the way, is a $90 billion industry. So it's a very lucrative industry. And Oprah has many philanthropic ventures. She's got a lot of, the Angel Network. She's got a lot of businesses, and she's got her school in South Africa. And so who better than to partner with than Starbucks? Because Starbucks is global, it's worldwide, it has the kind of reach that Oprah needs in order to make a profit. So for her, this is a good partnership. And for Starbucks, Oprah has the yoga moms, the demographic that is into wellness. And Starbucks isn't particularly looked at as a healthy organization that's health conscious, because they've got all these frappuccinos with whipped cream and everything. And so Oprah benefits from profits and reach, and Starbucks benefits from a demographic that is untapped for them. Okay, so now co-opetition. This is a type of partnership that is a strategic collaboration between two or more competitors. And an example of co-opetition is the MLS. So anybody who's ever bought a house, anybody who's a real estate agent, there is a multiple listing service, and it's used by real estate agents. This is an example of a permanent cooperative listing properties so that competitive realtors can effectively find properties for their clients. And joint venture. A joint venture is a partnership formed to develop new business. So I'll give you an example. Ford and Toyota formed a joint venture to bring hybrid trucks and cars into the European market. And joint activities may lead to reductions in transportation costs, packaging costs, or in information costs, and these are potential reasons why these organizations partner. Also, they may increase managerial efficiencies. So, for instance, Toyota could be excellent in terms of corporate structure, and Ford could be expert in execution in terms of technology. So here's another example of joint venture. So Pepsi wanted to enter into the food market and find a distribution channel for their products. And so they partnered with Pizza Hut and Taco Bell and KFC. And this is the most common type of partnership. So when we're looking at the business model canvas, this buyer supply chain is probably the most common type of partnership. And these are the most common types of partnerships, which assures you that you have reliable sources for your supplies that are coming in, and also your supplier means that they have a steady confirmed buyer for their particular product as well. Okay, so now there are 5 key factors that you want to take a look at when it comes to forming partnerships. Number 1, you want to make sure you've got the right partnerships. And I feel like I'm in your way. Would you prefer to sit over here? That's okay. Number 2, you want to make sure that you have the right partnership agreements in place. And we're on the tail end of the presentation, we're going to take a look at the very basics that you need to be aware of when you're forming a partnership agreement. Also, you want to be able to define your expectations up front with your collaborative partners, as well as you want to understand the impact that you're going to have on the end user and in terms of your user experience as well. And also, you want to be able to create win-win environments. So here are some of the most important intangibles for you to really consider. Your values. So do you have similar values? How are you going to, resolve conflicts and disputes? How does your prospective partner deal with conflict? And I'll give you an example. When I was working in the insurance industry, we were bringing a asset management software to bear. And we were working with a tech company. And the 2 partners in this particular technology company were at loggerheads, and they refused to work with one another. So us being the company caught in the middle, we had to find a way to work around both partners. So actually I had to go to one guy's house and sit and bounce his baby on my knee to get the information I needed, and then go to the other guy's house and get the information that I needed to get that to bear. So that's a lesson in basically making sure to know upfront, how are you going to handle conflicts? Work ethic. You want to understand effectiveness, commitment, what's their working style? Integrity, do you trust them? Is it based on emotion, or is it based on hard data? Also, cultural sensitivity. The fact that we are going global, we have such cultural diversity even here in the city, but many companies have to deal with international partners. You have to understand, do you have cultural sensitivity? Are you culturally aware? All right, so now we're going to take an interesting look at partnership agreements. And these are just the basics. This is not exhaustive. This is to give you a working framework so that if you had to go to a lawyer's office, you would know what you're talking about. All right? So why do you need a partnership agreement to even begin with? You need a partnership agreement because you want your business to have structure. And this gives you the framework for business structure. You also want a partnership agreement in place so that if there is any dispute resolution, that you've got, I'm responsible for this, you're responsible for that. This is where we bring in a third party. And you also, more importantly, want a partnership agreement because if you're doing a limited type of partnership, then you want to have an exit strategy. Even if you're a startup and you're ramping up and you want to sell your business, you want to have an exit strategy. Okay, so here are some of the key elements of a partnership agreement. Number one, don't try to cut corners when it comes to this kind of thing because it can be kind of costly. Make sure that you have legal counsel or you have a lawyer in place. And I want to give you a very real life example. I was just speaking recently at Humber Launch. They have a startup incubator over there. And at the end of the session, I had a guy who had a company they formulated with a friend, and it helped with the valuation of restaurants. Like it was something involved in terms of restaurants and their inventory. And the guy that he had the partnership with was the tech wizard. He had all the coding for all of their programs, and he got a lucrative offer, and he was going to Silicon Valley, and he was leaving with all this guy's data. And he says, Carol, what can I do about this? And I said, well, did you get anything in writing? Well, no, well, we're friends, and we have a gentleman's agreement. I'm sorry, you're out of luck. Because you didn't, you cut corners, or you went the soft route in terms of, accepting that we're friends, we can do business this way. But I would always recommend that have some form of legality in place when you're looking at any kind of partnership. Okay, so the other thing you want to do, you want to ensure that you do your homework prior to meeting with a lawyer. And here's a little website. And again, you're going to have this slide deck. For anyone that's provided Cleo with your email address, she's going to send you the link after this presentation. And
It'll be on the website.
And it's going to be on the website. So this is a checklist of drafting a limited partnership agreement. And that gives you basically, I think, 52 different points about what you need to have in your partnership agreement. Again, key elements of partnership agreement, you want to make sure that you clearly define your expectations up front. You want to consider the impact on your clients or user experience. You want to promote win-win relationships. And you want to look at something that I like to call the 6 Ds. So the 6 Ds are death. What happens if one of the partners dies? Disagreement. What happens if the partner, you reach an impasse? You can't get, beyond a particular point. You have a irreconcilable difference. Who breaks the tie? How do you reach a resolution? Also, debt. What happens if any of the partners becomes financially insolvent, and declares bankruptcy? Divorce. How do you handle this contingency? So let's say you've got a partner. He or she dissolves their partnership or their marriage, and part of the partner's compensation is they get part of the shares of your company. How are you going to handle that? So that needs to be included in terms of legality, and it's not something, you don't want to have a oops moment after. You want to make sure that you think exhaustively about what could happen and do your risk management up front. You had a question?
So we're talking about partnerships in terms of like individual to individual, or partnerships between company A to company B?
It can be company A to company B, it can be stakeholder, it can be individuals. It depends on what type of partnership. So if it's a joint venture, or if it's a strategic alliance, you still have to have a partnership agreement in there. And so for any type of partnership, you want to make sure that there is a legal component to it. So like for instance, if you had a business and you had an IT guy, or you had somebody that was critical to your business and they decided to do a walk, what recourse would you have? That's the key question that you have to ask. If there's anybody doing business with you that's critical to your business, then you make sure that you get things in writing. All right, disability. So what happens if one of the partners is hurt and is no longer able to contribute the time or talent to the partnership? And dissolution. What happens if the partnership just falls apart? So your partnership needs to include the name of the partnership. So for instance, I told you earlier that Toyota and Ford formed a partnership to bring hybrid trucks to the European market. That partnership could be under a completely different name. You want to have the name of the partnership doing business. If it's different, you want to have a term and duration, because not all partnerships are going to be for the length of the business. Some of them are short term, some of them are going to be for the length of the business. And that's why later on in one of the case studies when I do 500px, I'm going to give you an example of a very limited partnership. So, you know, you have to make sure that you determine upfront what is going to be the duration of the time frame that I do business with you as a business. A partnership can be perpetual, or it can be for a specific length of time. Okay, so the purpose of the partnership. What activities is the partnership engaging in? What products or services will be sold? And how will new products and services be added? So you have to think about that, because also, if you're scaling up, you have to have contingency plans in terms of what are we going to add and where do the responsibilities lie. Contributions of each partner in cash, deferred contributions, installments, property, including intellectual property. And this is why I love the example that I'm going to use later, again, with Straight Out of Compton, because we're looking at that through two lenses. We're looking at it through the narrative of the protagonists, the main players or the real life people, and then we're looking at through the business of bringing a movie to bear, and we're looking at intellectual property in terms of, you know, songwriting, but then intellectual property in terms of the brand or the product. Okay, so the other thing you want to include are the terms around the contributions for each partner. You want to figure out how will future contributions affect the partner's share? How will profit and losses be distributed among the partners, equal, unequal percentages, etc. You want to know in terms of retention of profits for the business needs, like will you reinvest the profits into the business? You're going to have to figure out the split. What's going to be the split? You know, are you going to take 30% of the profits and reinvest it, 50% and reinvest it? So all of this is under the partnership agreement. Are you going to have restrictions on taking out profits? You're also going to talk about distribution of profits and allocations of losses for each partner, and also how the profits or losses allocated to partners for the purpose of the partner percentages. Management. Who has what power, what authority, duties, including skills, contributed, hours of work for each partner? And how are key decisions made? Financial matters, including financial statements. Meetings, when are they held? Quarterly, semi-annually? Maintenance of records, who keeps them? Are they on site? Are they in the cloud? Where are they kept? Are they kept in Canada, United States, Japan? Where are the records kept? Partner time off, including leaves of absences, vacation, sick leaves, all of these things are under those terms. Outside, and the more of these things that you knuckle down, the easier it will be to do business. Then you're operating solely based on your value proposition, and these things are going to take care of themselves. And then when you do have an issue, then it's already in the terms. Also, outside business activities. Sometimes in businesses, certain things are considered conflict of interest, so you have to determine up front. Let's say you work for a law firm and you are asked to be on a television show with another law firm. Is that considered a conflict of interest? Ownership of the business assets, transfer of a partner's interest, and also the sale of partner interest to the partnership. All of these things, they seem like burrs, But these are things, again, that you need to consider. So the softer side of relationship management involves, and these are just no-brainers, but they're just nice to reiterate and to be aware of. Mutual respect, transparency. If you do get a chance to look at the YouTube video that I recommended earlier with Dr. Sean Wise and Brad Feld, one of the things that Brad Feld talks about is, his experience as an entrepreneur is communicating frequently and making sure that transparency is at the center of your business. Regular communication, seeking to understand. Cultural sensitivity. I remember, and I'll tell the story again, I was in Ethiopia conducting business with one of our key stakeholders and partners at the UN. And I didn't realize this, I didn't do my homework. The person that I was having lunch with, I said, hey, I'd like to take you out to lunch and discuss some business about a collaborative we're doing with a water and sanitation company. He said, sure. And we get to the restaurant, and I notice he's not eating. And it's because he's a Coptic Christian, and they fast from Fridays. So cultural sensitivity, if you're dealing globally, then the onus is on you to do the homework and find out, what is acceptable and have a palatable environment. For instance, in Germany, if you want to do business, it's better to talk about the business up front and then have lunch after. In other cultures, it's impolite to talk business before having lunch. Corporate sensitivity, and also asking questions. Smart entrepreneurs, smart people who are scaling up businesses or having businesses, always ask a lot of questions and always clarify to make sure that they're on the same page. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at a very interesting startup right out of DMZ here. And this is 500px. And I'm going to ask Cleo to run the video on this. And this is going to be our case study number 1. And this is going to be an example of a project, initiative, limited partnership, get in, get out.
500px has evolved significantly since your launch 6 years ago. We've grown to a community of millions of incredible people sharing their unique and creative views with photography. As we were thinking about the future of 500px, we knew we needed a brand that would evolve along with us. A brand that spoke to quality and creative expression. A brand that continued to put photography at the center of everything we do. We worked closely with our design partner, Focus Lab, to create this new brand.
So when 500px came to Focus Lab, there's a couple of key attributes that they wanted to see within the mark. And those were quality, approachability, authenticity, and community. So for the logo type, the main objective was to make it as legible as possible. There's a lot of names thrown out there with 500px as mentioned, 500 pixels, 500 pics, we don't know which one it is. So we wanted to make sure that without a doubt, with the new logo type, that you would read 500px. When we started on the 500px mark, we wanted it to be as simple as possible, something that conveys quality. But also, we wanted to convey a lot of those key attributes within the mark. So you'll see that there's a 5, there's the concentric circles that convey camera movement or focusing in on a subject. But those circles also represent a community, which has grown exponentially on 500px. So working with 500px has been a great experience. The clients put a lot of trust in us, we put a lot of trust in them, and I think in the end, we came out with a product that we're both really happy about.
We think this new logo and mark is a great reflection of our focus on celebrating visual creativity, and it's something that will continue to evolve along with the community.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about their story. Of course, they're a Toronto-based startup right out of here, the DMZ incubator. Their value proposition is they are a photo sharing community. So you think of Shutterstock, They are rapidly eclipsing Shutterstock, and you can share, buy, and sell premium photo stock. Their customer segment is the general public and the photography community. And I'll share some of the key partners that 500px is in bed with. So definitely the public, because this is a photo sharing community and the public is actually compensated for sharing their photos. Venture capitalists that invest in the business. Shestock, this is a really interesting partner because this is a group of women photographers that have very compelling images and a very visceral a product offering that 500px has decided is a good partner, as well as the Visual China Group, Google Play, and Focus Lab. And that's their design partner of the new logo type, and that's the video that we just saw. Now, our second case study for this evening is a local success story. Again, I said the proprietor is in our midst, Craig Wong, who is the head chef and mastermind behind Patois Toronto. How many people here have actually ate at Patois Toronto? You did. What'd you think?
It was awesome.
Awesome. You? Awesome. All right. So, congratulations to Craig and his crew, because they just landed in Canada's 100 best restaurants for 2016. So that's quite an accomplishment. As you know, the food industry is very fickle, and one bad review can pretty much have a ripple effect on your business. So the fact that these guys have been pumping out consistently good food, great atmosphere, and are just poised right now to scale up is a testament to the hard work that actually goes into a startup. Most startups take 3 to 5 years. They say 90% of startups fail. I'm not even sure that that's the number, but all I know is that if you're in it, you've got to be in it to win it. And I'm just going to play a little video to give you some context behind the organization business.
I look in the mirror and I see Chinese, but I don't speak Chinese, I look in the mirror and I see my whole family and they're speaking patois. And I grew up here in Toronto. I speak French.
Meet Craig Wong, the owner of Toronto's Patois restaurant, and he's sharing his Chinese, Jamaican, Canadian success story.
Were you starstruck by anybody you got to see during this festival?
I've been starstruck quite a few times. Seeing Jake Gyllenhaal, seeing Idris Elba,
yes.
Someone I'm a huge fan
I
of.
hope he gets that 007 role. Man.
No, I would love that.
CBC Toronto's special TIFF correspondent, aka Toronto Raptor Patrick Patterson, shares his final thoughts on covering his first film festival. Hello, I'm Maribel Tarouk. Welcome to Our Toronto, the program that tells the stories of our city. And we've got a lot of great stories to share with you in the next hour, including a new hotspot for wine growing in Ontario.
It's unexpected. I'm sure my friend that came with me today was surprised, and she lives locally, just didn't know about it.
More and more people are finding out there's a hidden gem in cottage country. Wineries are starting to pop up in Bruce County. Well, we are excited to bring you a new series here on Our Toronto. We're showcasing the stories of inspiring and accomplished Torontonians. From overcoming struggle to making a contribution in their communities, it's called Voices of Our Toronto. And we kick things off with the story of a local chef whose background couldn't be any more Toronto. Craig Wong is the chef and owner of Patois, a wildly popular restaurant that's inspired by Wong's Chinese Jamaican background.
This is one of my favorite shops in Toronto to come and visit, and we shop here on almost a daily basis. We make stops in here and we pick up all the little knickknacks that are very unique to the stores here. And this is the shop owner, Mikey, over here. Respect, Mikey.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us, man.
There are a few places in the city where Chef Craig Wong is in his element, and Caribbean Corner is definitely one of them.
Fresh breadfruit, you know, like stuff that you just like roast that over flames, embers kind of thing. You get that roasty, toasty kind of flavor. It's so delicious. They have all these different kinds of choices of like plantain. So you don't just get like one kind, so you get like the fresh coconuts over here, and you know, like this is like the ones that you want for the water versus the older ones, which you want for the flesh. You know, there's so many different things that you can do with the coconuts. June plums, another one of my favorites. It's sweet, you know, it's kind of sour, it's perfect for juices, you know. You don't find this in very many stores. It's the scent, you know.
You smell a mango.
Yeah, I love that. Like, this is heaven to me. One day I want to retire, I want to have a mango tree. That's it. That's all I want to do.
That's your dream.
That's my dream. Mango tree. Maybe a lemon tree, mango tree, you know, that's basically it.
In the meantime, Wong's living some big dreams. Born in Toronto to Chinese-Jamaican parents who emigrated here from Jamaica in the 1970s.
I'm typical Toronto, you know, mixed cultures, mixed ethnicities. I look in the mirror and I see Chinese, you know, but I don't speak Chinese, you know. I look in the mirror and I see my whole family and they're speaking patois. You know, and I grew up here in Toronto. I speak French, you know. It's that whole celebration of cultures where we're mixed kind of bag of ethnicities, and we all come together to make something really diverse, really beautiful.
And it's in this Kensington Market shop where his Jamaican side flourishes.
This makes perfect jerk paste, jerk sauces, and this is what I love using. Whenever we go to Jamaican weddings, you know, like this is the stuff that we carry on our own. You know, we're seasoning it ourselves. Like we start bringing things around, and it's really that kind of celebration of our culture. And this is what I love about us. You know?
And childhood memories come racing back.
I remember coming into like these stores and like being a young kid and just waving these things around, you know, just being a bad kid and just having fun with sugarcane, you know, and we'd have sword fights with sugarcane and we'd chase each other around.
But not too far away in Chinatown is where another side of Wong shines. He's brought us to Anne's Magic Kitchen, one of his favorite Chinese restaurants. And where does this chef go first?
Hi guys, how's it going?
Hello. Straight to the kitchen where he finds more inspiration.
It's almost like the paints on a painter's palette. So you see like all the colors that they're using, and they're building a dish from these like bases. What's in there?
Out in the dining room with the crew from his own restaurant, Wong's passion for Chinese cuisine is clear.
So this is called mala spicy boiled fish fillet, and it's actually like a basa that they poach in stock, and then they top it with chili oil. And then every time you pull that fish up out of that, you're gonna pass through this Szechuan chili, like garlicky, like hit kind of Szechuan oil. So it's super powerful, super pungent.
As a chef going to another restaurant, how do you view, what do you do with that experience? Because I'm always curious to see why chefs go to other restaurants.
It's kind of like musicians listening to each other's music. Like they listen to it purely out of joy. And I love to eat what other people are cooking because I feel like I kind of know them a little bit after tasting their food.
Learning and teaching. Here's Chef Wong demonstrating how to eat dumplings filled with crab meat and hot soup.
I usually pick it up by the top, nice and carefully, because this part right down here is super thin, and it can break at any time.
Okay.
And I kind of make a bit of an incision. I kind of bite the top off. And what I actually do is I pour a bit of vinegar inside. And it's totally different for everybody. Some people prefer it on the outside, some people prefer it on the inside, and kind of sip it from here. Wow, it's so good. Then I just take it and I just bite the whole thing.
Yummy. Gotta love food you can play with, eh?
Gotta love food that can injure you.
Of course, I just had to give it a shot. That is super good already.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just...
One time, one shot.
You like how I got you to explain it, so
Love
it
it.
cooled off a little bit for me? Here goes.
Like a pro. Loving it. Tastes good? High five.
But it's this dish that sparked Wong's imagination, don don noodles.
Szechuan chili oil, hand-cut noodle with some ground pork, some peanuts. There's a cucumber in there. Oh yeah, I get that.
Back in Wong's own restaurant kitchen, the work begins on recreating that Chinese noodle dish, but with a few twists.
This is a typical French jus recipe, and it's basically the foundation of French sauces. So we start off with caramelized shallots, garlic, scotch bonnet, thyme, very different kind of ingredients. And we're actually going to deglaze, where typically we would use white wine. We're going to be using some Wray and Nephew rum. And so we add this off the heat, just a little squirt, and then we actually just kind of give that a turn, flambe, kind of deglaze all those juices right at the bottom. Chef and I over here has some cashews and some red chilies toasting in the wok. Adding to this, he's going to add some ginger and garlic as well.
It leads to a final creation. Call it don don noodles, patois style.
I'm going to add the handmade noodles. And we're tossing to combine. This is our homemade Szechuan chili oil. That's flavored with a bit of star anise, some cinnamon as well. So here we're going to start to add some of our bok choy. We're going to spoon some of our jerk chicken. So that's now warmed, and it's also going to be saucy and nice and rich as well. Season it off with a little bit more of that chili oil to get a bit more of that spice on your palate as well. A few bean sprouts just to finish. That's our rendition of jerk chicken dan dan mein.
This is how Wong has built his culinary career. He studied classical French cooking at the prestigious L'Institut Paul Bocuse in France, then worked for renowned chef Alain Ducasse in Paris.
I always knew I wanted to work for Alain Ducasse, and he was really the basis of my foundation in my career. He taught me a huge lesson, which was even when you can do your best, even when you feel like you're doing your best, you can always work even harder.
Then he came home to Toronto, where he worked for other big-name chefs like Mark McEwen, Michael Bonaccini, and Claudio Aprile.
Now this is a lot of smoke. Hi, I'm here.
But much earlier in life, Wong was inspired by two chefs he watched growing up.
Stephen Yan from Walk with Yan. I remember watching his episodes, and people like Ming Tsai. I remember watching these guys on TV from a really young age, and I saw these Asian, American, Canadian kind of guys, and Stephen Yan being from BC, and that really inspired me. But growing up young and Asian, like I really identified with those two guys throughout my career, and kind of I would love to cook for them one day, to tell you the truth.
It helped Wong embrace his mix of cultures, roots that he didn't always appreciate as a child.
I love my heritage. I love my Jamaican, my Chinese, the whole kind of Canadian heritage that I have. And it's something that really took me a long time to fall in love with. I grew up Chinese / kind of Jamaican, and I would look in the mirror and I would see that my face is Chinese. But I go to family dinners and everyone's speaking patois, everyone's speaking Jamaican patois. My whole family, like they act a little bit more Jamaican than Chinese, they're not playing like mahjong, they're playing dominoes.
But he credits two women in his life for inspiring him to pursue his passion for food, his high school sweetheart and wife, Ivy.
What she taught me was that food could really be delicious, and it could be something that we could share in common.
And his other inspiration, the family matriarch.
My grandma was a great cook, and she cooked for the entire family, and she really showed me that food can show love, and food can bring families together. And when I started to see that it can bring people together, I realized how powerful that could be.
It's all come together in his restaurant on Dundas West, a dream realized.
Patois is the first kind of restaurant where I get to cook the food that identifies with me, and the food that we love to eat, the food that we love to cook. I feel like we've created a bit of a safe haven for all kinds of diverse people to come and be who they are, and to really sit down at one table together and just eat great food.
A restaurant that has won accolades from foodies to food critics, but Wong says his goal goes beyond good reviews.
What I really want to achieve is happy customers, returning guests. You know, that guest experience means a lot to me. So I make an effort to go out to the dining room whenever I can, and I like to just talk to people and just ask them how their dinner was, make sure they had a great time, and that's really important to me.
And he's on to something. Just after his restaurant opened, he had an intriguing visit with patrons at his restaurant.
They came in here to the bar, they sat down at the bar, and they just knew a little bit too much information about me, and little subtle things that I kind of picked up on. And so it being open for only 3 months, I knew like I didn't owe anybody any money. So I was sure that I was going to be getting some kind of amazing job opportunity, or I was going to get my butt beat. One of those.
Turns out they were from a restaurant company in Dubai, and they'd found Wong through social media.
They were very interested in doing like a modern Jamaican restaurant, and they looked in many different cities, and they looked in London, they looked in New York. You know, they went all around looking for a Jamaican chef who's doing something that's a little bit more creative, and they found me, you know, and we were 3 months opened at the time, and so I felt really blessed.
Ever since, he's been flying back and forth to Dubai, getting set to open his new restaurant right across from the iconic Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest structure.
I always want to do big things, and I'm not getting in this to just do one single restaurant, and I definitely don't want to be here just focused on one single place. But what I do know is that I need to be somewhere that's going to be a growth potential.
Always growing, learning, exploring. But for Wong, it always comes down to this.
Please be my guest. Give that a try. Nice bite.
That is delicious.
It's good stuff.
Good food made by a team of young chefs mentored by Wong and taking inspiration from the world around them.
What I feel like is we have the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and we all come together kind of like Voltron, and we really unite ourselves, and we focus, and we have one goal. So one team, one dream.
One love.
One love.
And you can see why I wanted to use that restaurant as a case study, because there are so many ways that this feeds into some of the key elements about key partnership. Emilio here asked me earlier, how do you, he asked the question, how do you know if you're coming up with a good idea for a startup? And in terms of Craig, it came from the imagination, it came from his dual culture. At play. It came from inspiration from competitors and collaborators. And so, as you can see, your concept for a startup can come from anywhere. And then it's up to you to make what's up here be actualized. And so, I really have to commend you, Craig, and definitely Ivy, for bringing this to bear, and then offering such an amazing offering to our city, and then now you're poised to have world domination. So that we could really learn from you. And what's really interesting, Craig is, I've got to say, one of the humblest guys I've ever met in my life. My cousin over there, sitting very quietly, was the culprit that took me to his restaurant, and she's a master networker. And she said, look, I got to introduce you to this guy. No, we got to go when he's there. And sure enough, the experience, because I had to put my marketing, the whole time I was there, I was putting my marketing, my business development hat on, and everything was coming at me very viscerally, and it was overwhelming because there was so much greatness. And I thought right away, and I said to her, I want to make this one of my next business cases at Ryerson. So I'm glad that you had me, infringe upon your establishment and also pick your brain. And I did actually interview Craig last night and called him several times yesterday and said, what about this? And so I'm going to share some of his lessons learned, some collective wisdom, some of the challenges of a startup. So I think these are some things that you can take home and really utilize. But I think that's such a really amazing story, and Craig, certainly I wish you all the success in terms of scaling up and going around the world, because I really do see that this is poised for Dubai, Japan, LA. And if you go there, it's the three things that are very distinct that you will notice right away in terms of value proposition is great staff. If you've got a startup, you want to hire amazing staff. From the time we got in there to the time we left, the user experience, or UX, was amazing. The other thing is you want to have a sense of environment. Even Starbucks, believe it or not, Howard Schultz is very intentional about when you go into Starbucks, the espresso machine is humming at a certain amount of decibel. It's a very contrived atmosphere, whether you believe it or not. And that's something that they worked on the business plan. But there's the environment, there's the people, there is the mashup of cultures and food and culinary experience. So really great formula, very unique value proposition. Also, we're going to take a look now at some of the specs. So of course this is Toronto-based Asian Caribbean fusion restaurant. They're located Dundas West, but the three ways they win: quality food, service excellence, unique atmosphere, and they're in tune with pop culture. And that was the target and the goal. The customer segment, general public and celebrity clientele. I guess that was because the service was so exceptional. What happened? Now this is the hub. This has turned into a hub for celebrities. So NBA All-Star Weekend, all of the ballers, and anybody who was who's who that was in town was at this restaurant. And it's not a very big place, but it was ram-packed. And I remember leaving there when Penny and I went there. All the neighboring restaurants were empty, and everybody was standing outside trying to get in here. Even Usher wrote about this restaurant. So definitely do I think it's poised for scalability. One thing I would say is yes, but also it depends on timing. A lot of startups want to scale up very quickly, and they don't ask themselves, do we need to scale up? Do we want to scale up? Do we even want to scale up? What is going to be involved in partnerships? Timing is everything. So the next thing, there are partnerships. Of course, you can see locally, the local fruit market, but then internationally, the partners in Dubai. Growth goals, lateral, but really in it for the long haul in terms of longevity. Also, environmental, corporate social responsibility. First thing I asked Greg, I said, are you guys, eco-friendly? Of course, biopackaging, and very much the lens of being eco-friendly. Also, potential for scalability. Again, we should be hearing about the launch soon in Dubai, and when that happens, I'd like to come back, and Craig, we want to hear the Dubai story, okay? Okay, so here are some of the things that Craig was very generous to share with me last night that I want to share with you. The first point is really profound, because he said, don't project your own expectations onto your people. So whether it be your partner or your staff, if you have a startup business and you think, I want things to be exactly this way, and I see so much potential in this person, and then you try to sell that person, well, can't you see your own potential? And they're not with it, it's gonna be frustrating at best. And I'm gonna give you, again, a personal example. When I started in financial services, I started as a receptionist, and as I told you, 6 job promotions later, I was in senior management and marketing, and then leaving that company. The woman I started with is still at the company. She's still on reception. They said, I'll call her Cheryl. Cheryl, we see so much potential in you. We want you to be supervisor. No, I don't want to be supervisor. I want to be the receptionist. you know, a couple years later, Cheryl, we see so much potential in you, we want you to do this. No, I just want to be the receptionist. So, you know, I've gone all around the world and back just because that's my own thing. But this particular person, she may have had the potential to do those things. However, I can't project, or that boss cannot project what they want onto that person. So that speaks to that first point. The second, know that people will disappoint you. When you have a startup, or you have a business, we go into it very Pollyanna. We go into it thinking that everything is going to come together. I remember one of the case studies for the last time I was here. That company was having challenges with their churn. So they're a startup, they got off to a great start, but then their staff turnover started quickly to fall apart. And that was part of the problem why they had to slow things down. Also, you don't own your staff, you don't own your partners. If you get into bed with a supplier and they, for whatever reason, don't want to be with you anymore and they don't want to leave it and they're critical to your business, they have the free will to go. So make sure that you have realistic expectations when you engage in starting a business or you're running a business. These are some of the things that these are hard lessons to learn, but they're good lessons to have in the back of your mind. Also, engagement and shared vision is key to success. One of the things that is very obvious when you go to Patois Toronto is all of the staff get along, from the kitchen staff to the mixologists that are mixing us these crazy concoctions, these drinks. You can tell the environment is congruent the minute you walk through the door. And so engaging your staff, dialing into WIIFM, what's in it for me or what's in it for them, is key. Chemistry is another thing. If you've got a good chemistry, you want to cultivate it, you want to manage it, you want to keep it. Key partners and startup challenges, and this isn't exclusive to Patois, but any startup. Getting the right mix of people and avoiding churn or staff turnover is something that is a major challenge when you have a startup. Getting the right partners in place. They have to have a shared vision, values, mission, even ethics. Making sure that those things are in place in terms of your support network. Creating the right ecosystem or the right working environment, that actually allows your startup to grow. And putting the right buyer-supplier in place. These are all things that make for a great startup. Okay. I'm going to give you 7 concise little points here on scaling up. And I think a week from now, there is going to be somebody at Startup School talking about scaling. So again, there's some great lineup of presentations, and take a look online and see what you can register for. But I know next week there's going to be somebody talking about scaling up. And I speak to this from the partnership lens. So get the basics down, know your market niche, your niche market well. Automate everything. If you can automate everything, it's going to make your life so much better. And when I'm talking about automating, I'm talking about things like your cloud storage, your training processes, your payroll, your marketing automation, bill payments. Those types of things are, if the quicker you can invest the time up front, the easier and the smoother your startup is going to run. Also, focus on marketing that is scalable. And when I say this, I'm meaning that marketing that is going to be able to take on a life of its own and traction. And I'm going to show you an example when I do the Straight Outta Compton example about marketing that took on a complete viral effect and just went worldwide and went crazy. It was like on steroids. If you can outsource all your non-essentials and focus on what you do well in your business. So, for example, with Patois, there's a catering element to their business. So that they would outsource and focus on the food element, because you can see how accomplished a chef he is. And he knows that's his business. He knows the food, the creation of the food. So the things like catering, you're not going to spend your time or energy on those types of things. You're going to focus on what you really want to do and what your value proposition is. Keep an eagle eye on social media. For any business, whether you're a startup and you're a fledgling, especially if you're a fledgling business, you want to make sure that your social media is on point. So we were talking about, in terms of marketing being scalable. Direct marketing is not scalable. Word of mouth, though it's great for increased business, it's not scalable. The only thing that's scalable is content marketing. And when I say that is providing valuable, excellent content is what's going to give your business legs. And that's how you can leverage social media when you have excellent content. Okay, making sure that your business can run without you. I'm sure if you ask Richard Branson, can Virgin run without you? He's going to say a resounding yes. So if you have a startup, you want to get to the point where your business can operate without you. And hire a partner with the right mix of people. Okay, so now I see there's food over there, so I'll definitely speed this up. I'm going to see what time we're running. Okay, so straight out of Compton, how many people have, and I know this is a long day, and thank you so much for hanging in. Okay, so how many people have actually, how many people here actually know NWA? So, a lot of people know NWA. How many people have actually seen the movie Straight Outta Compton? Not too many people. Okay, so I want to tell you about this great little narrative here. So you've got these 5 guys, they're living in Compton. They decide they want to talk about the challenges of the day, underserved neighborhood. This is a real life story. So we've got Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, MC Ren, DJ Young. And these are real characters. And these are just fictionalized characters on the screen here. But these are real life people that this biopic is based after. So they get together, they form a rap group to talk about police brutality, to talk about being an underserved community. And they meet up with this guy and they decide, okay, this guy wants to take us on and he's going to produce our records. And they don't look at the contractual agreement. So we talked about partnership agreement in that last segment. And the first thing they do is they don't look really at the fine print, at the red herring. So this is actually a lesson in a couple of things. Knowing your value proposition. So the first guy to bail is Ice Cube. Ice Cube's like, I'm the one who's writing the raps. This is my intellectual property. We're making millions of dollars in terms of this album sales, and yet we're getting pittance. So something's not swinging right with me. I want to leave the group. So this is, if you think back to the very beginning where I quote the Seth Godin quote where it was like, fail fast, fail cheap, and fail in a way that doesn't kill you, these guys are failing fast. And the failing expensively part comes in with Dr. Dre decides he's going to stay on with the original management and goes on, and then when he realizes, we're not really getting paid the kind of money that we're getting. Our album sales are climbing, and yet we're still not getting the kind of compensation that correlates with the album sales, so he decides to leave and gets into bed with another partner. And that is a lesson in terms of they don't have the shared moral compass. And he gets into partnership with someone who now owns his masters. So this is failing really expensively. So this is a cautionary tale about picking poor partners, negligence in reading the partnership agreement and the contract, also recalibrating and pivoting after failure. So Dr. Dre decides to leave the second partner, forms his own production company called Aftermath, but has to leave the masters. And so he does recalibrate, he does pivot. And how many people here have headphones with Beats by Dre? Okay, a couple people. And so, of course, we know the story about that. He sells his Beats by Dre to Apple, becomes a billionaire. So we go from guy in the hood who's couch surfing to billionaire. So obviously, Dr. Dre and many of the people in this particular story have what's the entrepreneur spirit. They have something that tells them what I have, whether it's their lyrics, whether it's production, whatever I have is of value. So Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, they recalibrate, they pivot, and eventually they succeed. Ice Cube, as you guys know, he's in the clothing line. He has movie productions like Friday and all kinds of movies, and they've overcome obstacles. So it's a good news story. And also, now they're meeting with success. And it's also sort of like the journey of an entrepreneur as well. So let's take a look. So that was the real life story. This now we're talking about the business of Straight Out of Compton. And so here are some of the key partners involved in bringing the movie Straight Out of Compton to bear. Universal Pictures, who's owned by Comcast Corporation. Interscope, which is Universal Music. How many people, when you watch it, when you go to the movies, you wait, you stay, how many people here stay until the very end? Okay, why do you stay to the very end?
Sometimes it's the marbles, but sometimes it's just the respect to the people who do it.
Okay. Anybody over there? Who stays to the very end? I saw a hand up back there.
I get to see the date and maybe the location.
Okay, date and location.
Yeah, the location is great.
Location. Any other reason why you stay until the end and watch till the credits roll?
Alternative endings.
Alternative endings. That's a good one. I stay. The music. Okay, the music. Soundtrack. Anything else? That for me? The credits. Yeah. I always stay and watch as that roll call comes down because I want to see, as a marketer, I want to see how many partnerships went into making this production. How many people were actually, how many companies and people were actually involved in this particular production. And with Straight Out of Compton, the interesting metrics on this one is Straight Out of Compton did $57 million in its opening weekend. This was a dark horse that nobody, no pun intended, that nobody expected to succeed. And it did remarkable. And then it, Universal Pictures and all the other film companies started to take stock. Okay, so Apple is the music distributor, iTunes. Also, Northern Kingdom. Now, this is my favorite one because they generated the meme Straight Out of Compton. How many people here used Straight Out of Compton meme? Like straight out of whatever.
Scarborough.
Straight out of Scarborough, straight out of whatever. I used mine straight out of Flemo. But it's really interesting because Northern Kingdom came up with this concept and they said, why don't we co-partner with the general public? Why don't we put something in it for them? So they come up with the straight out of and you fill in the blank, and that went absolutely ballistic. It was like went viral on steroids, and it had something like 20 million, 30 million shares. And the interesting thing is developing the logo. How many people know Ronda Rousey? Well, when Ronda Rousey, not this last fight that she lost with Holly, whatever her name was, but the other fight that she actually won, this Northern Kingdom, the pin mat, because everybody was watching that fight because it was such a high-profile fight, Northern Kingdom decided that they were going to design the Straight Out of Compton logo so that when Ronda Rousey pinned the opponent for the 60 seconds or whatever it was, that shot that went around the world with all the people that was watching that fight would see the branding for Straight Out of Compton. To me, that was just a stroke of brilliance. Also, social media. So 60 million shares, how many shares? Twitter, Instagram, like I said, the Straight Out of Compton meme, logo, branding went absolutely crazy. And that's what happens when you have a congruency in terms of partnership. That's when partnership is actually at its best. And I just gave you the USC example. And also merchandising companies, so hat companies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, the general public. All right. And here are some, and I'm going to digress for a moment. Here are some of my favorite Straight Outta blank. Now, Serena Williams is Straight Outta Compton, so she posted that on her Facebook. This guy, it was a bacon lover, so he was straight out of bacon. Somebody had this interesting meme to be straight out of Kimye. And this was me. I was at my friend's pool, and I decided to be like straight out of the pool. And hanging out with some of my longtime buddy, childhood friends in Flemington Park, and we were like straight out of Flemo. We represented our neighborhood, and wait, I guess we'll go again. There's one more. And this meme was also used for social consciousness, and Black Lives Matter decided to use this to represent straight out of patients because of all the race stuff that's happening in the States. So this is a reminder that key partners are essential in carrying out your business, key in leveraging strategic partnerships, help you enter into new markets like the Starbucks example that I gave you and Oprah, provide you with access to new customers, help you to expand your resources, and help you to reduce costs through economy of scale. And here, drum roll, are the 7 key takeaways. Number 1, know what you're worth. Know what your business is worth. This is your value proposition. Don't dilute your product or what your service offering is by trying to do too many things. Focus in on whatever your niche is. Know what you're getting into and for how long. So if you're looking at partnerships, think about that partnership agreement I talked about and just the framework. And that wasn't even exhaustive. So know what you're getting into and for how long. Know what you're getting out of. So if you know that you're only going to grow a business to a certain degree and then you're going to get out of it, then know what the duration of the time is that you want to be in that business and know that up front. Remember that key partners can make or break your business. Definitely be culturally aware and sensitive. And ensure that your value proposition, as it is in the business model canvas, is central to everything. And number 7 is always put everything in writing. All right. So I just want to thank you for hanging in this long. This is an opportunity where we can have a question and answer period. I see that Cleo has some food over there, so we didn't keep you this long to make you starve. So this is a time that I welcome your questions, and if you have any sort of questions that maybe that you might want to ask even Craig, for those of you who are thinking of starting a business, this is the time to do it. So let's have a really low-key discussion on if you guys have any questions. Any questions?
You're mentioning let's automate everything. Automate as much as you can.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it's an idea that I'm kind of iterating through. I feel like if I grab enough parts or like do enough of those services, I put them all together, well, like 90% of my business is already there. Is that a good sign or a bad sign?
Okay, I think you have to really be, as much as you can automate, like automating payroll, I would say check. Some people argue automating marketing, all of your marketing, might not be such a wise idea. So you may want to cherry pick the things you want to automate. Automating your storage and cloud and those things, definitely.
I guess I meant more from like an integration perspective. Like, I guess if I had like a party idea. So like I need a venue. Yeah. So there's already a startup that's doing venue management. And then I need something that I can see how many tickets are getting through the door. So there's already someone that's doing ticket management. So if I do that like a few more times, I have about 90% of the business without having to do anything.
That sounds to me like that's an excellent idea. What could be wrong about that?
It's just that I'm not sure if there's any unique sauce without, like, if everyone's doing something already. And you take all those parts out, and what's really left?
So what's your value proposition? That would be my next question to you. What is it that you're actually offering? Because if everybody can do everything without you, what is your actual business?
So
where is your creative edge? Like, what is it that you're actually,
Yeah. So I'm looking to help independent and emerging artists book alternative venues to really grow their audience.
Okay.
And so there's companies that have venues, and there's companies that can help with sort of ticket management, and then there's other companies that I can like hire a server or something, so I can get all the pieces together.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of spinning it all into a certain avenue.
I think from what you tell me, in terms of these other services that are essential to your business, if you think back to the 9 segments of the business model canvas, it sounds to me like you've got a pretty good edge in terms of what you want to do. So focus on the creative aspect of what you're offering, and then automate everything else. Now, Cleo?
Oh, did that answer your question?
Or anybody else want to take a
I
crack at it?
just have questions, though.
Sure.
My question is actually for Craig.
Well, does that answer your question? Because I think what you just told me, just so that we have closure on this and we have understanding, is that what you're telling me is you've identified the key areas of your business that you need, that need automating. So it leaves you to do the secret sauce, right? In terms of, let's say, Craig, he's the person who's coming up with the idea with the mashup and with the food. But does he need to be concerned about the catering? Does he need to be concerned about making drinks, right? Or does he need to be concerned about payroll or things that he can automate? So that's what I'm saying. Cool. All right. Okay.
So I know you have this deal going on in Dubai. So I guess for all of the things that Carol talked about today, things that you went through, and like how long did it take you to get through those processes? Like,
I mean, we still deal with day-to-day stuff all the time. Even though we try to automate as much as possible, there's always kinks in everything that we do. Every time I feel like we kind of take one step forward, we kind of take a step back at the same time, and I feel like we're always taking a step more towards where our goal is taking us. I'm really trying to get better every single day. So as far as like, really, it's never a clear picture. I know where the goal is, and even that changes from time to time. So my goals at the beginning of the restaurant are very different than the goals that I have now. It's probably more a way that my mind's been opened a little bit, and I've seen more opportunity, and I've seen more room for growth. So it's keeping flexible so that we can always make sure that we're heading towards where we actually want to be.
I have a question for Craig. Actually, so we're talking about a good team, I guess, and some congruence, and it sounds like you really have mastered that. So what are some factors that you look at when you're recruiting somebody for your team, and how do you determine if they fit well?
We had at the beginning of the restaurant, we definitely didn't have the team that I was looking for. It was a very different team than we have now. Build the team slowly, and what I've tried to do in all of this is make personal relations with each individual that we have. I never manage I don't manage the entire team the same. What I love to do and what I've found to be so helpful is I target each person and I talk to them, I get to know them. I know how I can push their buttons. I know what I can do to get to evoke a reaction out of them. And so I know that for some of my cooks, they react to the hammer. And so for some of them, like I have to like give them a spoon of sugar. I have to like just keep telling them how good they are and what to really do. So you really got to get to know each person on an individual basis, and then through all that, you kind of got to make sure that they get along too. So I hire based on attitude. I never hire based off of a resume. They definitely have to have the qualifications, and it speaks volumes about what each individual brings to the table. But after that, it's what kind of fit. And I let everybody know that on the first day. I said, I don't care where you've been. I don't care what kind of experience you've had before. When you come in here, you do things our way. You come in, you be a part of the team. If you're not going to be a part of the team, you're not going to work here. Even myself, I would fire myself. Seriously, if I could find somebody that would do what I could do cheaper, faster, better, I'm all for that.
Question?
Sure.
For you, Carol.
Sure.
Going back to agreements.
Yeah.
So but in the early stages, startup, you're small, good to have things clear on paper, but at what point do you instill that division that, okay, you take care of, let's say, the tech, I take care of, marketing, like, how do you, because at the beginning, you can't do that. You need everybody to do everything, and everybody wears many hats, but at some point you do grow.
You do grow, and you do need to have a partnership agreement. Now, remember back to that example I gave you when I was at Humber, and that guy had the company that did the audit for restaurants and the inventory, and he went on the basis of, we're in it in the beginning, and it's all hands on deck, but he didn't think about what is critical to my business. IT and coding and the actual operating system, the program, was critical to his business, and that was an oversight that he didn't take care of in terms of the partnership agreement. So to answer your question, at what point do you determine when you put a partnership agreement in place? I would say from the very beginning, if you can. Before you start thinking about all hands on deck, because it's easy to get flustered and go all hands on deck, and you're not really thinking about the big picture in terms of the business. If you have a burning passion of the value proposition and idea, you want to protect that like a little baby cub, and you're a bear. So you don't want anything that's going to harm the cub. So that's why I'm saying the more things you can do up front, whether it's automating or it's getting those partnership agreements in place, then it leaves you to run the business the way and be the visionary and then cast the direction, build the right teams and whatnot. So I would say as much as you can do up front. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because a lot of startups think about all hands on deck, and then when things fall apart, they think, wow, we should have done that up front. So that's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, my question is about, remember how we talked about how we have to outsource the non-essentials?
Yeah.
And my question to you is, how do you focus on your craft and master your craft as the company grows and still manage everything that's going on around it? How do you focus on getting inspired, coming up with new things?
I'm going to ask you to give your insight on that one. How do you do that? I don't know. Well, in terms of automating, I'll maybe talk to part one, and then maybe if you can add some insight to that. I would say, in terms of what I do, if I'm going to take my business, Stella by Choice, for instance. My bread and butter is my brain, helping people make money or think about how they can, how business can determine multiple streams of income, where they're leaving money on the table. So my brain would be thinking, and I want to give you a very real example. I had a photographer. All he did was headshots, click, click, click. I went to his house, and I noticed all these beautiful pictures about Cuba. I said to him, what do you like? What's your passion? He says, I love going to Cuba. Whenever I make a little bit of money, I take my money, I go to Cuba, right? I said to him, okay, so what are your passions? Well, I like teaching. Are you teaching in the universities or the community colleges? No. Why not? I don't know. I said, why don't you try it? He tries it. $16,000. So he's speaking at Seneca. I think he's speaking even here at Ryerson. Okay, teaching here at Ryerson. So that's $16,000 that he was missing on the table. Do I have time to, I'm just trying to think, do my social media? Do I have to have time to go on buffer, or is that something I could hire somebody else, like let's say a Cleo, who's a master at communications? I would rather outsource it to her than me to be concerned with, let's say, social media. I'd rather be focusing on the thing that's my sweet spot, which is the brain loves business, loves helping companies think broadly, loves developing businesses, likes to help business determine whether or not they're healthy or not, and hire out somebody to do the things that either I don't want to do, I don't want to be concerned about payroll, I don't want to be concerned about those other things. So I hope that answers your question.
For my business, it's a bit unique because I almost have to pretend a little bit to not automate the process, because everybody wants to come to the restaurant and wants to have the dish cooked by the chef himself. And that's just the reality of it, and everyone that comes into the restaurant, they're imagining it out there on the stove, cooking, but I got two hands. Literally, that's 2 minutes. The food that comes out of a restaurant takes the work of at least 5 to 6 people, and 5 to 6 people will incorporate to come up with each component of the dish. And nobody wants to think about that. You know, nobody wants to think about that. If I didn't have those guys, I couldn't be here with you guys tonight. And like the restaurant's opening, the restaurant's functioning, and I want to grow our business. For me to be able to do a business on one side of the world and do business on the other, I have to use a different set of skills. So I'm using my brain. You know, I'm using my it's savvy basically to be able to break everything down of what I want to do to its simplest core, and that way I can teach individual aspects to each person. And I have to create manuals that talk about food production, have to talk about mannerisms in the front of house, like drinks. You know, there's like so many different areas that we have to talk about. And a restaurant is very unique as well because people think of it as just a place where people eat, but there's psychology in everything that we do. The music is at a certain volume for a specific reason. The light is at a certain dimness for a certain reason. We're really playing on all the senses of people, and we're creating almost like an atmosphere. It's almost like an installation. It's a living, breathing installation, and people are coming in to experience this. I always say that food is our product, drink is our product, service is our product, but what are we really selling? We're selling a fun experience. And if we can get our guests to come in, have a fun experience, who cares what the food tastes like? I take it very seriously. That's my core. But people aren't going to remember how delicious the food was when they had a fun experience. So these are all the tools that we use to evoke a certain response from our guests. And that's really what the restaurant is about.
I just want to add a caveat. I don't care whether or not I had a fun experience. I like the food. If the jerk lobster was the food, it's because the environment was, kind of null and void to me. I'm like, that food was good. So anyway.
Craig, do you want to talk about also thinking outside of the box, your patois sign?
Oh yeah, definitely. So when we were building the restaurant, we spoke with a lot of designers, and whether it be like a web designer, whether it be like somebody who would help us develop our logos, even designers for inside the restaurant. Obviously they cost a lot of money, but it wasn't even a money thing. They just didn't understand our brand. I did not want to let go of that control when we were starting out, when we were so young, because it's so easy to dilute our vision. And I found that the more people that came into the business, the more people that started to bring their ideas, I just hated it more and more. So I love to have a finger in each area of the business, and at that stage, it's more than just a finger. We relied on somebody that knows us the best, and that's my sister-in-law, and she's a web designer, and within like the matter of a couple of hours, she developed our logo. And it just encompasses everything about us. Like, people were coming at me with ideas for like a rum bottle with a Jamaican flag and a Chinese flag, and I hated it. Not about that. So our logo actually encompasses a double happiness, like a Chinese double happiness, which translates to like joy and good fortune and to a lot of different ideas. And then there's like the pineapple that kind of surrounds it, and it kind of plays up that whole Caribbean, Asian, like it hits on many different themes as well as hospitality. Pineapple is the international sign for hospitality, and very common in even like the southern states, and like all over the place. Everyone that would receive a pineapple would feel it as a sense of hospitality. I think it's a perfect fruit.
And your sign outside.
What's that?
Your sign outside.
Oh, the sign outside. So basically, when we were in the beginning stages, we didn't have a huge amount of capital, and we would contact people that would talk about doing like custom logos and custom like designs on the storefront. And I just got really annoyed because they were trying to charge us like $1,200 or $1,400 just for little pieces of metal that are cut out that every other place down the street has. And I just got really annoyed and started to think about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a piece of wood that costs us $40. I'm going to take a stack of like galvanized nails that just cost like another $40, and then we just hammered it in. And so we hammered in our logo, and it's a custom designed piece. It took about 2 days, but it's something that's unique to us, and it's something that really kind of talks about our desire to be unique.
Amazing. I'm going to take 2 more questions, and there's pizza waiting for you guys. All right.
So it's assumed that when you go into partnerships, growing teams, that sort of thing, you do your homework and you hopefully find someone that clicks. But things change over time. People change over time. So what kind of red flags would you say look out for when you have to really stop and consider we should just dissolve this agreement?
Well, one of the things that Craig said up front was that if they don't have the shared vision, right, like with your company or my company, if they don't have my shared vision, then I don't want to do business with them, right? So that should, when their vision starts to veer from yours, from the original understanding, then to me that would be the inkling of a red flag.
Yeah, I've actually been in talks with several people about partnerships. The difference in opinion comes out in subtle ways because people tell you something with their mouth, and then they tell you something with their eyes. They tell you something with their body language, and you really got to listen to them as a whole. People will nod and they'll tell you everything that you want to hear, but I kind of allow people the time to speak because that's when the truth comes out. You have to really listen to people, and you have to really give them the opportunity to tell you their side. Because if you just are talking to them and you're just telling them what you want, they're not going to tell you they're not going to reciprocate that. And when I give them the opportunity to speak, then that's when the real kind of truth comes out. Because people, I don't know, they're a little bit shy. Everyone shies away from kind of talks about money a little bit, but getting down to that core is really necessary.
Okay. One last question. Anybody? Wow. Okay, well, thank you for your questions, and thank you for your time. And it's been really great being here. As I said like the last time, this is always the highlight of my year. I love being in this particular zone. I love being with my tribes people who think in the entrepreneurial sense, that are making things happen. So again, I have to thank you, and I wish every last person in this room unbelievable success. And thank you so much, Craig.